I wanted to record a quick little video to show how I use Emmet in Visual Studio to generate things like this pretty quickly. I've been writing some PreTeXt today, and PreTeXt allows you to specify tables in this kind of HTML-like way. So when I'm thinking about the table I want to make, I know I have to type all this stuff in, but it's quite repetitive. Lots of delimiters that are hard for me to type. So I use some Emmet abbreviations to simplify this for myself. So here's the next spot where I need to have a table. And the way these look is I have the tabular tag, and within it I have one call tag for each column, and those are all empty, but they have these attributes on it. And then after I've kind of specified the columns, then I can actually enter the rows. So it really is row major. I do the rows, the one cell at a time. So this is the contents of the first row here. We have an empty cell with no text in it, a cell with an epsilon, cell with an A, cell with a B, but all the content, all the text content, I want nested inside these M things. So you don't really need to worry about what all this means. It's more just let's look at the shape of this nested system of tags. So I'll come back down here now. So here's where I want my new tabular. And off screen I've got my notes so I can see the next table that I'm putting in. So here it is. This is going to have 4 columns, and the first column needs to have this h_align equals right, and then the next, I might have said 4 columns, but it's really going to be 5. So there's one. I want one right aligned column, and then all the next ones are going to be center aligned. Now notice a couple things. I'm not putting the quotation marks around the attributes. Those are supplied by Emmet. But I'm just specifying the attribute inside the square brackets. Now I can multiply like that to get 4 copies of that. So now after all those columns, I've just realized I haven't told you about these punctuation here. So here's are separated by pluses. Children get a greater than. So this greater than shows us that all the column tags, all the call tags are children of the enclosing tabular, but they're peers of each other. They're not nested inside each other. So after those calls, another peer, I have all the rows, and I have 4 rows in this table. So I'll do it like this. And each row does have some children. It actually has a cell inside it, and the cell will have an M element. And each row actually has 5 cells in this table. So I don't need just this, I need times 5, like that. Now each row has 5 cells, each of which has an M child. And there are 4 such rows to go with the 4 columns. So my abbreviation looks good. Let's pull up the command palette. And there it is, expand abbreviation. If this wasn't already in the top of my command palette, because I've been doing it all morning, I can just type expand. And there it is, the Emmet expand abbreviation. So here it is. Let's hit enter. And now you can see my thing is fully populated here. So I'll just scroll through so you can see it's really all there. The rest of my document follows. Everything is perfectly aligned and formatted. And the cursor, the insertion point, is right in kind of the first empty field, the first thing that needs an element. So Emmet is smart enough to skip over all these calls. It recognizes them as empty. They don't have content and they don't have a closing tag. The only things that are not empty here are the rows, which are filled with cells, the cells themselves, which are filled with these M's. And the M's I can try and populate. So now I'll just enter the contents of all my cells. This first one's actually empty, so I can just hit the tab key to move to the next one. And that gets a var epsilon in it. The next ones get A, B, and C. So as long as I'm careful, I can continue to tab through these. If I use the arrow keys or I use tab to do something else, I can kind of disrupt this, but as long as I'm careful, I can just keep tabbing to the next field and continue to enter the contents of my table. Okay. I don't really need to do all of this, I suppose. So let me just show you the last thing. I won't fill in all these values, but there's one more thing I wanted to show you about how I use Visual Studio Code, and in particular the keyboard shortcuts. So this takes up an awful lot of room, having all the line breaks here. It's not really how I like my XML to look. I like it to be a little bit more compact like this. I mean, it kind of doesn't matter because we can use the IDE to fold these things when we're not looking at them, but still I just like it to look like this. So I want all these line breaks between the cells and M's to be gone. And this is the sort of thing that can be a little irritating to have to do, but Visual Studio Code actually makes it pretty easy. So let me go ahead and turn on the screencast mode here. So now if yeah, good, that's going to show my keystrokes. So here's what I'm going to do. I know that every time I have cell alone on a line like this, so I'll select it, I need to do some collapsing. So I'm going to select all of them. That's the first row. That's the second row. That's the third row. And here come the 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the last row. So that's all the cell lines that I just added. If I just start typing, it'll overwrite what's selected. That's not what I want. So let me right arrow to get out of the selection. So now I still have all my cursors, but nothing is selected. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to delete. And now you can't see, which doesn't bother me, but it might irritate you. So let me scroll back up. I do that without moving any of the cursors. And now let's use some keyboard shortcut selection. Control-Shift-Left takes us to the start of the next word. Little bit irritating. It's gone a little too far, but we can Control-Shift-Left-Left to get rid of it. And now we just have the space selected. Delete and repeat. Now it looks great. Of course, the content isn't supplied. I didn't do all of that on screen, but that's the end of this video. Thanks for watching.